Okay, so welcome everybody. The topic of today's lunch seminar is basically analyzing the historical disaster events within PARATUS, and that is done together with the forensic analysis and the impact chains. The main focus of today, though, is forensic analysis, as you already heard a lot about impact chains, but we will also have a part on a bit on how to integrate the two types of activities within the project. So Federica, next slide, please. Yeah, so as I was saying before, the presentation will be divided into different parts. If you click on the slide, we will start with a just quick introduction of what is forensic analysis by Funda. So it's more the general content. And then moving on to very PARATUS specific content, so how we analyze past events in PARATUS, so the forensic analysis approach within PARATUS, and also what has been done up to now, and the next steps within the project, so more into the planning phase for the coming months. Okay. Yeah. So that's the main outline. And
okay. Then I take it over. So hi, everyone. Welcome to today's lunch seminar. And thank you, Silvia, for the introduction. I would like to start by asking, is there anyone who hasn't heard about it before, like forensic analysis? Please, you can raise your hand or thumbs up if you haven't heard it before. One person. Others, two. Okay, so I'll decide how much time we need to spend in the introduction. Okay, 3 people. Okay, thank you so much for raising your hands. So next slide, please. Okay, so forensic, actually, it is about like denoting the like application of scientific methods and techniques to the investigation of crime. So it starts with the investigation of crime, and when you look at the past, like for example, to understand the poisoning and like such things, they started using the forensic analysis. Like that, they like if you go to the next slide. It can be called also like a reverse engineering, because you look at the scene, what happened, and like a crime scene, and then you try to understand how they arrived to this point. Like, so you start with a known end result. You know, for example, if we consider the disasters, if you look at the impact, the damage of the disaster, and you try to understand why it happened, like what are the root causes? No, we can stay in that reverse engineering. Okay. What are the root causes? Why you had that damage? So for this reason, you start gathering evidence from multiple sources to understand why that failure occurred, why that damage happened. And this requires, of course, investigation of collected data. First, you collected the data, and then you try to come up to a meaningful end result of the collected data. And as we all know, and we also received questions, and I think we will also receive during the question and answer session about data, data will always be incomplete. So the key here is also to work with different, together with different expertise, and then try to come up to a meaningful analysis of the collected data. So if we move to the next slide, there are several forensic analysis methods, but here, we use 3 main forensic analysis. And here later on, my colleagues will present you the PARATUS approach, which is actually based on these 3 methods that I'm going to present now. So we just combine them. And we take, like mainly we use the foreign, but also we included some questions, some sections from other methods as well. So we didn't invent this. We just combined the existing forensic methods and we use it in the PARATUS project. And we selected forensic analysis, one of the methods while we are writing the proposal, because it fits very much to PARATUS understanding and methodology, because we are looking at how different elements interact each other. What is the role of the human activity in this influence, and what are the root causes, and how to broaden the scope of disaster risk reduction. So as you see, these are also the main points of the forensic analysis. And so like we are looking at also the damage to understand why it happened, but also the purpose is to link it to planning and also policy. And foreign also supported by economic, it supports also economic and social growth. It doesn't focus only the disaster risk reduction. And it is also structured around the causal chain. We also use something similar to that. And also, using the forensic analysis, you provide a descriptive analysis of risk drivers, the dynamic processes, and also the root causes. And the next slide. The other method is PERC. It is different and it is developed by Zurich Insurance Group. Here, there are three main elements. We have the agents people, we have institution, and we have the system. And these three main elements, they are looking at how they interact. And they are not looking at what went wrong, they are looking also what went well. So providing some examples for safe failures and for the good examples also help us to use them in other, also in the disaster risk reduction measures or also policies or in planning. Next slide, please. So here you see a lot of buzzwords like flexibility, redundancy, responsiveness, relationships. So these are the aspects that they are looking at in these three different components. Like when they are studying the agents, for example, what is the relationship? So it is very important, what are the networks of agents? Whether they can access to resources. So it's not only what the resources are, but what is the accessibility of various agents to those resources? So if it is if the resources are accessible, why? What makes them accessible? If not, why they are not accessible? So we would like to also study those things, looking at the past events to understand these relationships between these different components. And that's we included also some questions in our methodology to understand these relations. I won't go into very much detail because we need more time to explain our methodology, but I will be happy to answer questions if you have any. We go to the last one, the last method. And this is another one, this is familiar to most of you because PDNA is part of it, post-disaster needs assessment. And this is detecting, it is called detecting disaster root causes. And so they if we move to the next slide, it will be more clear. Yeah, so they are looking at they have different level of analysis, and they are looking at the drivers and root causes, and they are by asking some specific questions, they would like to understand the relation between the level of analysis, for example, vulnerability, disaster risk management, exposure, and so what is the relation between vulnerability and the root causes, and what are the drivers? And if we move to the next slide, there will be some examples there. And then they provide such graphics by answering the questions. As you see, like the details are different, the focus is different, because it depends very much the expertise of the expert who prepared this forensic analysis. And like as I said in the very beginning, you collect data, and data is always incomplete, and the analysis depends on your understanding of the data. And that's why, like in PARATUS, we would like to collaborate all together to make it less incomplete, and also to provide a more meaningful analysis. Like if different expertise come together, I think the understanding will be better, and you will see now how complicated it is. So I think, Federica, it's your turn, I think. If I kept it short because I don't want to take so much time, it will be more clear while we are explaining the methodology. Yeah, Federica, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Funda. It was very helpful, and I think that very much clarify the general approach we're going to apply in PARATUS, and also clarifies how we can combine it with the impact chain. So where we are going to apply this method that Funda has just presented, we are going to use the same learning case study that are going to be applied for the impact chain, because the idea is also to complement these two methodology and improve these two methodology, exploiting the common data and the common analysis that we will be doing. So here are the 18 learning case study that are going to be analyzed, and of course we are talking about the forensic analysis approach first. The different theoretical framework that Funda has explained have been condensed in this approach that is structured in 4 main pillars, let's say, that goes depict the analysis or develop the analysis from before the event with the pre-disaster condition toward the future. So analyzing how the measure and the policies that have been implemented during the event have been or could have been exploited for improving risk prevention and hazard management in the future. So I will analyze any of this pillar, all of this pillar, and explain the different components. And the question that Funda has mentioned are actually small component to analyze and to gain the big picture for all these 4 pillars. It's what I want to stress is that the creation of this framework has been a joint effort with Funda, with the University of Twente, and also University of Bucharest and of Istanbul. So starting from the first, we are gonna start with the hazard and impact analysis, because as the first point, so the entry point of the analysis, and it's necessary to set the scope of the whole analysis. Setting the scope means to identify the hazard, identify the geographical scope that it wants to be analyzed. So if it is only the exit place where the hazard happened, or also expand the analysis also to the region, for example. Set the time for the analysis, meaning the temporal scope, because we are going to analyze short-term and long-term impacts, but the time frame depends from hazard to hazard. So it's necessary to identify before starting the analysis if the short terms means 2 months after, or 6 months after the event, and indicate the long-term impacts according to the short term. But this, of course, depends on the specific of the hazard that have been analyzed, and also identify the operational framework. So meaning from which we are going to collect information, and how we are going to combine the data together, meaning if we are using only desk-based analysis, if we are going to use some models or some also stakeholder investigation, so identify where we're going to find the information from. After that, after having set the scope, the core is part of the hazard and impact analysis. Start from the description of the hazard and also of the hazard trigger from the main hazard. The description mean explain intensity, put frequency or expected return period, and the duration. So have all the information related to specific to the hazard, and also draft or start to analyze the warning system. So how was set the warning or alert system, who was in charge for that, which was the information that have been delivered. This is because it's useful to understand then how the recovery, so, which have been the impact of the hazard, if it could have been, if they could have been prevented with a better warning system, for example. After that, we pass through the analysis of the impact. We have divided short-term and long-term impact, and with short-term we identify the impact that are immediate soon after the hazard, and of course, as I've said before, this can vary from hazard to hazard. What the meaning of short-term and long-term has to be decided before. The description of impacts are, we have set few core sectors, so that vary from the physical part, so the buildings and the infrastructure, to the impact on human life and on the environment, and also the have a draft of economic evaluation of those impact, both for what was the short term and also the expected long-term impacts. And then the pillar of hazard and impact analysis is finalized by the analysis of the first response, meaning which action have been implemented, who was in charge, and what was the workflow during the first response. The second pillar is the identifying and analyzing the pre-disaster condition, because as Funda said before, the impact and the response strongly depend on the vulnerability of the environment in which the hazard has happened, but also this vulnerability are actually linked to more structure and more long-term process that are identified with the underlying risk driver and also the root causes. I will explain that in detail. So the vulnerability part, as that also is in the impact chain, the vulnerability are all, it is identified as the condition of being adversely if impacted or affected by a natural hazard in multiple dimensions, so that we can have several vulnerability factor for each of these dimensions. But what is important to understand is that this vulnerabilities or this condition of vulnerability actually derives from more long-term processes that are or that the vulnerability are the exemplification of these long-term processes that are called underlying risk drivers. These risk drivers are those processes that are that characterize the context in which the hazard has happened, and are referred to human and environment relation, and how this relation are developed. And normally these risk drivers actually limit the ability to cope with the ability of both the community and institution of cope with the natural hazard. The underlying risk drivers are also structured by categories, so they can be linked with the social structure, with the land use, the change in land use management, with the cultural condition, with the exploitation of the environment, and actually are needed to tackle, to understand which are the process that have led to the the identification of this vulnerability. Before the underlying risk driver or prior to the underlying risk driver, we have the root causes that are more structured process that actually influence or determine the society. They're more linked to the institutional, the institution and the sociocultural context. And create sociocultural dysfunction. So we can talk about, for example, the consequences of colonization, the consequences of land grabbing that then develop several risk drivers. So it can be environmental and land management pattern that then create some vulnerability that can be identified and then that can influence the impact of an hazard. So this is going to be the analysis of the pre-disaster condition. For for each of these boxes, we have several guiding questions that can help in understanding better. And then we pass to the recovery part. So after the hazard, analyze after the hazard what happened, and the recovery part is divided into let's say building blocks that are the implementation. So the implementation of the recovery. So who was in charge from the institutional point of view, how many resources were allocated, in which sectors, and which stakeholders have been involved. Also to understand if there have been some sectors that have been prioritized during the recovery and how, and also analyze the time needed for the different service to be restored, starting from the most basic service, for example, water and energy, reaching more, let's say, complex services, for example, schooling or transportation. The final part is the analysis of the resilience, so how the development of the hazard management can actually be used for capitalizing the experience and the knowledge. So in this part, we are going to develop or analyze if there have been some improvement from institutional and technical point of view for the risk management. If during the recovery, the response and the policies have also included improvement from the technical infrastructure point of view, for example. And on the other hand, if this doesn't happen, which are the points that are still need to be improved that can cause vulnerability if in the response of future hazards. All the scheme that I've presented to you is actually reflected in the Excel file that have been circulating among the different work package and project partners. And as you said, for each of the blocks, there are several example and several guiding questions, let's say. We have asked to all the project partners to identify how easy and straightforward would have been collect all this data from using a scale from 0 to 3. So 0 was meant no data available, then 1 difficult to access or to analyze, and 3 was data already collected, easy to be analyzed. All this data will serve and will be the basis for the development on the forensic analysis narrative. So develop for each component a narrative that explains actually the history of the hazard. So which have been the conditions that determine the response and the vulnerability, and if there have been some element or factor that contextual factor that have actually injured the response. So this is the overall overview, and now I will leave the floor to Liz, that will give you a brief analysis of how we are from data collection point of view.
Thanks, Federica, and thanks, Funda. Could you move, please, to the next slide? Yes, so this is the overview of work done related to past events. So this table is divided in the learning case studies, in the columns related with the impact chains, and the columns related to the data availability of the forensic analysis. So the columns related with the impact chain say if there is an impact chain already done for this case study or not, and if these are included in the first deliverable. And in the columns of the data availability is about if the case study with this analysis were filled out or is not complete. And at the end, the score. And the table also shows based on the final score, like which case study has like more data based on this score. So for example, we have Bahia, San Vincent and Grenadines, the Tohoku, Hurricane Katrina, the European floods, the flood disaster in Tyrol, Austria, the COVID-19, Brandsen earthquakes in Romania, and the landslide observatory in Lower Austria. Also, I want to highlight that the case studies of India, the both of them, they didn't have data or like they are not collected. So they were not included in the slide that I will show in the table that is included in the next slide. Could you, exactly, yes. So this is a table that has like the 4 pillars that Federica explained and also each case study. And also it's like with the score that each case study or each like divisions. Of course, I know that is numbers and maybe for you right now, it's not easy to understand what does it mean. So in order to simplify this, I just highlighted with green to know or to have an idea in which cases we have more information or data to proceed to the forensic analysis. As an overview, we can see that in the hazard part, we have in most of the cases good data or data to start for this analysis, but maybe for vulnerability or like the pre-disaster conditions or recovery resilience is not enough. We need to think about a strategy or something to how we can overcome this. So also in this table, I didn't include the case study of India because there are not information. And yeah, and also we can see here that the European floods like the Ahrtal flood in Germany, they are included. Also Bahia, the COVID, and Tohoku, Katrina, like as you can see. Also, I also checked that because so many of the disasters are quite recent, so there is no so many information in the long-term impact. So, but it's also something that we can discuss or talk in order to have more data available. And yeah, that's basically, you can also check the slides then, and we can discuss bilateral about this. And I hand over to Silvia. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz, Federica, and Funda. So now we move on more towards the next steps within PARATUS with regard to the analysis of past events. So as you saw, there are 2 main activities that go in parallel, but should not be parallel, should be integrated, like one should help the other. So to analyze the different learning case studies, we have forensic analysis and impact chains. So if you just click multiple times so that I don't have to say click every time. Okay. So the first step would be to finalize the forensic data availability file, because as Liz was showing, for example, the India learning case study was not filled in, but also other case studies have many empty Excel cells. So it would be ideal to have an overview of really what data you know is there, what data you know is not there, or you have no clue where to look for it, so that we really know like where we are standing. So we also know what would be the effort needed to carry out such forensic analysis. And we also have already an overview of the already available impact chains. All the links are clickable, so once I will share the slides, you can access the files. And in this way, we can prioritize the different learning case studies and understand which can go into deliverable 1.2. So the internal deadline for the group would be end of April 2024, so this year. So we don't have much time, and it's better to start from where we have more data and for where we are more sure that we can make it on time for this deadline. If you click again multiple times. So in order to prioritize the different learning case studies, we can have a specific work package 1 meeting only focusing on these forensic or past events. Then the next step would be to actually collect the data or analyze it and write the forensic narrative. So basically, this is answering all the questions of the Excel file, all the different points in the boxes to create a narrative. So the final objective is to have a text, at least, so of what happened before, during, after the event, and why. But of course, different level of details are possible. So text is the minimum requirement, so a narrative, but then also graphs, maps, and other type of data analysis can be shown in the deliverable or in the forensic in general to back up such description and such text. If you continue clicking, yes. So the question is where to upload the data, because sometimes it will be like each box can be described by just some simple text that maybe is contained in a report, but in other cases maybe it's some a shape file or some specially explicit data or some quantitative data that needs to be analyzed, so it needs to be uploaded somewhere. So we have to discuss where to do that. Also, we can provide, of course, an example or a template of an already existing forensic analysis, but we do not have it yet, so it's going to take time. So it would be ideal if the different learning cases can start already, and then we provide the template or example a bit later in time. Yeah, if you continue clicking, click. Yes. So moving on to the impact chains. So for the learning case studies that are linked one-to-one directly to the application case studies, we already have impact chains, but the idea is to improve them. So to, for example, describe all the elements and fields that are within Kumu, because sometimes they're empty. And the forensic analysis, of course, can help to do that. So if you're looking for information to write the narrative of the forensic, and you write a small paragraph, for example, describing a vulnerability factor, like, I don't know, socioeconomic vulnerability factor, you can add it to Kumu if it's missing, and also use the text, just even one-to-one copy and paste it in the description in Kumu. And even use the forensic analysis with the reference, even the time when such event occurred, so one can complement the other. Yeah, and if you can go back, just remove the, and also because we notice that there are many missing elements, especially on the vulnerability side, and also the connections and different elements are not standardized within all the impact chains we have. And that's also something we have to work on. Maybe we can do it on the EURAC side so that we make sure that all the different impact chains we have are consistent and follow the same approach, so that they also can be queryable and explored in the platform later, for example, in the project. If you continue clicking, and to improve the existing impact chains, focusing on application. So the learning case studies that are linked to the application case studies, we can have bilateral meetings so that you know in which direction impact chains should be improved. And ideally, once we have both impact chains and forensic analysis for selected learning cases and are included into the deliverable, we would like also to make some conclusions on how to improve disaster databases, because we will see what is there, what is missing, what we were not able to find, also what were the quality, for example, if, I don't know, cultural vulnerability factors are more difficult to find or they're not quantitative while physical ones are, we can make some conclusions also for the future on how these disaster databases should be developed in the future. And this ideally would be nice to include in this meta-analysis in the deliverable. So that's why we would like to gather all the information first and then make this meta-analysis later. Yes, okay. So I gathered here already some questions, both regarding the forensic and the impact chains. I saw that Maria in the chat already asked something about the impact chains. So are we aiming at 20 impact chains for all the 20 learning case studies? That's actually a really good question. It's also what I wrote here, like, so how many impact chains, starting from the past events one, so further different learning case studies. So ideally, in order to include them in the library of impact chains in the platform, we would need one impact chain for each learning case study, but we can discuss this. Then there are other questions regarding the forensic. So there are many factors for which you scored 0 or 1 or you left an empty cell. So this means that you say that no data is available or is difficult to collect or you don't know. And so we want to find a strategy to understand what to do with that. Should we go and look in depth and try to find the most as possible, as Funda was saying? Also, if we will never be 100% complete. And also what to do in case this is not possible. We don't have the resources to do so. And where to store the learning case study data. And then, yeah, finding a date for prioritizing the different learning cases within work package 1 context. But and also the idea is to have all the different some learning case studies in the deliverable, but also the question would be what to do with the other learning case studies that do not make it on time for the deliverable. Where can we present them? The PARATUS platform or other publications, maybe even other deliverables, other type of communication media, I don't know. But these are open questions that we have still, but if you have other questions, thank you for listening. If you have other questions, we are here. In that, I see your hand.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. I want to add a few things. First of all, like the links on these slides, it is accessible only for the people in the project, because we have also some externals now in the meeting. So if you try and cannot reach it, like don't worry, because it's the internal project document. And the other one is like we try to quantify as much as possible the impact chains with the support of forensic analysis. So while doing the analysis, try to focus on some facts, some statistics that might help us to quantify the impact chains. And another one about what we're gonna do with this 18, or are we going to do on all 18? In the proposal and also in the deliverable, like in the proposal we had more, but then we reduced it to 18 in the in one of the work package 6 deliverables. So we promised, so we need to do this analysis on this 18 learning cases. But like as Silvia mentioned in one of her slides, we will prioritize and we will decide together how to distribute them to different deliverables. But at the end, we can have a publication, a book maybe with all the forensic analysis, because I think it might be the best option for 18 forensic analysis to publish all together. We can discuss all those things, but we need to work on all of them as we promised. Thank you.
Yeah, I see also Sonia with the hand raised. Thank you, Funda, for the explanation.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was really interesting and very easy to gather all the important aspects of such a complex topic. I was very interested about the first slide from Funda, where you mentioned the scientific, like the techniques that we decided to use in PARATUS. And one of these is the, like the understanding of the human, the human component in the disaster scene. And actually, together with the work package 2 with Nuria, we were thinking to actually explore this in one of the like we are still understanding how to integrate it, but because in Deep Blue we are expert on human factors, so we thought it would be interesting to include the human component in the PARATUS risk assessment, maybe in just one case. So if it's still possible, I don't know about the timing, but if it's still possible, maybe I can take care of one of the learning case study. To maybe that can be more focused on this human component. So maybe I can join next meeting and we can see whether it makes sense or not. But I think if we are going to do the work on the work package 2, it makes sense to mirror it also on work package 1 with the forensic analysis.
That's very nice, Sonia.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And we have a file with an overview of all the different responsible partners for each learning case. So maybe we can have a look at it together and see where most effort is needed, whether to move, like to pick one where there is already a lot of data so that it can be very, very complete, or take one where there is almost nothing so we can have something. I don't know, we have to find a strategy, but I think we can talk about it. And thank you for this. I also see Maria with the hand raised.
Well, thank you. So just coming back on Funda, so you mentioned that, so we need to cover all the 18 learning cases, but do we have to cover them in D1-2, for example, or so how does that work? So that is maybe to clarify that. Is there, so we need to agree what we do in D1-2 and what we do in other ones? Is
so one of the points mentioned in the slides was that we need to prioritize somehow all the different learning case studies, because also from a reader point of view, I think it does not make sense to present 18 forensic analysis and 18 impact chains. We had 11, if I'm not wrong, in the first deliverable 1.1, and it was already 120 pages. So the idea is to prioritize based on where we have the most information, so that we do not struggle in time by the end of April. But then, as we were saying before with Funda, trying to understand where to publish or to advertise even somehow our work on the others, and also to how much we want to push the others. Should we only focus on what we have without really trying to answer every single question of the forensic, or try to look for more? Do we only ask if we don't have boxes filled in? Do we only ask stakeholders? Do we do a literature review? Like how much we want to move?
Yeah, but would we aim approximately, I don't know, do you think 10? Do you want to have 10, or do you want really to have less?
Even
in
less?
This D1-2? So we're really going into the more detail, right? At least there.
I saw that there are some dates, Silvia, to make this decision, right? Some meetings you have already.
Yeah, no, they're not fixed yet. I just found some slots where we are available on the EURAC side, all of us. I don't know if all the learning case study people are here, because we could already decide for a date now where to talk about it.
Do you want to select one of these dates, or do you want to have only one meeting, right? Okay.
At the moment, one, then another one after, maybe.
I can only be on 26 because 29 and 30 I cannot. 26 I can, yes.
And ideally, it would be useful to have at least one person per learning case study. It's not all the work package 1 partners, it's just a selected number. So so it would be somebody from University of Vienna, somebody from Twente, somebody, but maybe it's easier if I send a doodle.
Maybe we send doodle or something. Sorry? Is it possible to send a doodle or something? What do you think?
Yeah, but if you Funda are only available on the 26th, maybe I can find some more dates.
The week of 29, the entire week, I cannot. Because I've been a workshop in Japan in a different time zone, so it won't be possible.
Okay, so today I will take the 26th slot, but also find new slots that are okay for us in EURAC, and share it with in the email. The email that has been circulating on forensic and learning case studies, the same partners, and we can find a slot. It will not be possible to have everybody, but at least I think the essential, most important would be EURAC, you, and at least one person per.
The leader, at least for
Exactly.
of the case studies.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, there are. By the way, like if you haven't done so, please like feel free to populate the table, because like we need different expertise. Like even if you don't know the disaster, if you are interested, please join so you can help us to understand the data, as I mentioned in the presentation. Like, for example, we don't have many economists, so economists can feel free to like add their names to different disasters and to help others to understand the economic aspects of that disaster. And we don't work on all of them at the same time, so do not worry. Like if your name is in multiple events, as we said, like we will distribute this analysis in time.
Mm-hmm. Well, may I go? Well, I just was talking to Ahmed. Well, there's two economists, maybe there are more in the team, so please, well, it would be good to know. But also in terms of prioritizing, because if we do a couple of studies like in the first kind of batch, then we can look like what can we contribute in the first batch, and then so it's kind of also distributing the time, knowing what the priorities are. So that would be also a kind of good thing to do.
And also, for example, if we select 5, let's say, for the first deliverable, but maybe we won't be able to answer all the questions, it is also okay. We can always say that, like, we focus this part, but this work is ongoing, and then we can continue, like, because it is quite detailed, like, and as I showed you in the example, not in every example there are all the the details, but we would like to reach that point because we are a very big team with different expertise, and we can reach that point, but maybe not in the first, maybe not in deliverable 1.2, but yeah, but we have 3 more years, so.
Yeah, and this table that Liz presented, it was a first step to try to prioritize. So looking at where we already have an impact chain in the other deliverable, where it's existing. For example, for VIA, we have a draft impact chain, but it was not included in deliverable 1.1. And we have a high score in the Excel file already. In other cases, we don't know because it was not filled in, like India, or in others, maybe people can complement and make the score higher because they know something. So this is just a first overview, just because we wanted to know also where we're standing. But I think before and during the meeting, we can kind of select even 5, I think, would be without having a huge number of learning case studies, so that we go in depth, as you, Funda, were saying. Yeah, any other? Okay, I'm looking at the comment of Sonia. Okay, thank you, Sonia. And any other questions? Yes, please.
Silvia, I would like to ask if this version of the file is live. I mean, when I see these charts, I just go back to the Excel file and I saw that I missed some of the questions. Now, for example, I answered them. How can I see the score that is evaluated by you?
You mean this I'm showing? No, it's a PowerPoint presentation.
So how can I check it if it is appropriate now, if it is proper now?
This is, I'm going to ask you, this is on base of the Excel data sheet that was on Monday, but of course, like, because we wanted to update it, like if we have the collaboration of more people, so then of course the scores is gonna change. So it's just like for now, this is like a picture.
It's a picture from Monday this week.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are changing something in the file now, or you changed it yesterday, the Excel file on forensic data availability will not be in this table because we did it on Monday. So But we cannot. The idea is to update this table and even use it for the meeting we will have. But it's not automatically updated. It's something Liz did manually.
Okay.
We can even find a way to do it automatic, but that was not.
Okay. So for the next meeting, maybe we will learn when it is updated, right? I mean, now I filled the form, so I guess you will evaluate it, and then when you give higher score, it means it's appropriate. It answers the questions, right?
I think the high score is just the sum of all the numbers. So if you gave 3 to everything, it's very high because it's 3 plus 3 plus 3, so it's super high. If you gave 0 or left the empty cell, it's gonna be 0. So it's just to understand if how many trees you gave, so where you have data available and already collected, or if you gave 0, or if you left an empty cell, which maybe means you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also it's relatively because there are people who put so many ones and it's like high, but it's data that you cannot analyze or easy to get. So it's better if you have, for example, a 2. So that's the reason that is the next table. But don't worry about this. I think the best thing that we can do together is just to fill the Excel, and then we will have different results, like more precise. So don't worry about that.
And decide together also based on your time availability, how much time you have to work on it, how many other people can help you. We can decide. That's why I was proposing a meeting to prioritize. It's not gonna be only the number. It's just an helpful tool, but it's not the number only.
Okay, thank you.
It is mainly to understand how much time. Oh, I hear myself. Okay, to understand how much time we need, and from where to start, like how to prioritize. So, but all like it's not approval. Like we need to work on all these cases. So.
Exactly. Yeah, Federica.
Yeah, I was also if somebody really is keen for doing this analysis, even if it doesn't have much data, we can kind of guide or help in how to structure it or how to find data. So I think that, for example, Sagler, if you want to have some of the Turkey case study in the deliverable, we can include it without any problems. It's not something that is a way that we have found to prioritize. Is not the final decision, and it can be modified. And then also how many learning cases put in the deliverable is still to be decided. So it's very much under elaboration yet. And any contribution is very much welcome.
Exactly. And since the deadline is very close, we have to start somewhere. And it's a way of starting, but it's flexible. And sorry, there was Nuria first, but I was sharing my screen and I didn't see the number.
No worries. Yeah, hello everyone. So thank you, Federica, for saying that. I was working in the Gloria Storm forensic analysis too, which is, I also fulfilled this Excel file, and sometimes like I put there is no data or is difficult to gather, but because I'm thinking in like, for example, the Gloria Storm struck the whole Catalonia, and gathering this type of data for the whole Catalonia is sometimes impossible, or it can be like very, very like large amount of time. And but maybe like having just a site-specific information, it's most like very easily to collect this data and do it. So I don't know if we can include Gloria Storm also as a learning case study, or if I can help in another learning case study, forensic analysis or whatever, but maybe doing like not doing the whole Catalonia, or not doing a whole place or country or whatever, and choosing like specific sites could be interesting too, and maybe easier for some learning case studies,
Yeah, just to answer, when we presented the slide, the first slide of the framework, let's say, is setting the scope, and in this setting the scope is exactly what you were saying. So meaning, glorious storm hit the whole Catalonia region, but for the purpose of the analysis, I will develop, or we will develop only the impact and the analysis in Barcelona or in the Ayuntamiento of Barcelona, so like the metropolitan city of Barcelona. So you set according to what is more meaningful. And I think that in any case it would be very nice, because given that we are doing the case of the analysis of Vaia storm, for example, Vaia hit the whole northeast of Italy, so 4 regions, but we haven't decided yet if we do the analysis for the whole 4 region or only pick one, or have a comparison among only 2. So it's something that has to be developed.
Yeah, thank you, Federica. I was sorry, I was about to say exactly the same. And maybe what's interesting is that if we focus on both, also for the deliverable, maybe we can pick the same scale. So if we pick, like, I don't know, a sub-region of Catalonia in one, we do like similar scale in hours, or so that it's sort of comparable, so that we do not do the entire northeast of Italy for Vaia and then super small scale for Gloria. But it was just brainstorming for now. Sorry, Nuria, go on.
No, that's it. Yeah, I'm completely agree with both of you. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we can discuss also this in a bilateral meeting. And yeah, I think we are already overdue with the time. So if there are not any other questions, comments, doubts, can close here as well. I don't know, Funda.
Thank you very much for this very nice and detailed work and presentation. And thank you for the participation. So it's nice to see such a crowd.
Also during the lunch time. Thanks a lot for joining. And all the others for supporting preparing the slides. Okay.
So we have work to do, a lot.
Exactly. So I will send the responsible partners doodle, so you will hear from me soon. Okay.
Thank you very much.
And I read in the chat, Happy New Year, Samuel. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, and a Happy New Year. I don't know, maybe it's late to say it now, but Happy New Year.